Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another Friday afternoon. It's Techtalk Day. Mike, what do we have today?
Well, today we are going to discuss cross-cutting, which I believe we've spoken about in... No? We are discussing. You both shook your head. You were both shaking your head. I thought I had the wrong topic, guys. But we are talking about cross-cutting, maybe a little something to do with Josh's background there. And look, I think this topic has come up in previous videos from time to time, but let's have a bit of a deep dive into this topic, gents. Who'd like to kick off? Maybe Josh with that background.
What a disappointing week. First of all, the Matildas will lose. Then we have Techtalk with just the three of us because Tim and Brandon are away. And now you want to pull this stunt on me, Mike. This is a hard week to stomach.
When it rains, it pours.
Cross-cutting in Melbourne. Cross-cutting, yeah, it's not one I really struggle to maintain professional composure when talking about cross-cutting. Not something we see a whole lot of in Australia anymore, but we still get asked about it on a regular enough basis to know that it's still alive in some way, shape or form. What is cross-cutting? Cross-cutting basically means, like the diagram that was so wonderfully put together by somebody else on Instagram a few weeks ago, and I'm not even going to say shout out and thank you for this one because anyhow, so you might, cross-cutting may mean cross-cutting or cross-hatching, where you grind a floor in one direction, being north to south, and then we're using the same grit. You could cut east to west, or you could change to the next preceding grit and do east to west, something along those lines. And you may even go diagonally across those. So that would be something like northwest to southeast and northeast to southwest.
This is getting all too confusing now.
I'm getting busy with you.
And there you have it, kids. The reason why we don't promote it is because it's just too confusing for us.
This is breaking news. We've got a new product coming out. It's a compass for your grinding. Just so you know which way you're going. Yeah, cross-cutting, I mean, it can provide so many problems more than solutions, really. Particularly with talking about that first heavy cut, where at times you will get ridges in the floor. And then the common misconception is, you know what, to get those ridges out, I'm going to go the opposite way or across it.
Against them.
Against them. So what happens when the machine hits a ridge and you're going in the opposite direction, the front of the machine goes up, right? And then the back of the machine slightly is digging in more. So now you're going to create more problems than you're actually going to solve. And that's one of the reasons we don't do it. Whereas opposed if we just go on in that straight line, you know, with the right amount of overlap and right amount of movement left and right, we can eliminate that and get a much flatter floor. But what are the pitfalls?
So that's kind of like going with the grain torque as opposed to across it.
Something like that.
Mm.
Let me play devil's advocate. Is there any particular reason why you would do cross-cutting at all, or you can't really sort of think of any?
I can. If you want the floor to be not flat, that's a good method. If you want to be dealing with so-called erratic scratches in the floor, I would definitely recommend doing it again.
If you want more ripples, then do it as well.
So I'll take that as a bit of a no, then, really.
Hey, I don't get to choose what people want.
All right, so overlapping, what if I have cross-cut the floor and I'm finding this out halfway through that it is creating more issues than not? What am I doing to bring it back? Anyone?
Neither of us want to talk about it. You're fired, Mike.
I did say I'm playing.
How do you get back? Touchy subject. Look, the best thing that you could probably do, Mike, is you start again. Go back to your first cut and create a good canvas for yourself. Give yourself the best shot at getting that, at creating a flat and highly reflective surface. Don't stuff around.
Also, too, so if I am doing this, cross-cutting, effectively I'm passing over the floor in obviously most areas twice. Is that going to create any other issues for me? Like as far as, moving on to the next tool and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's a few different methods for cross-cutting, and I'll talk about that one, Mike. So using the same grit to do cross-cut. So we're going one direction. Let's say it's a 30 grit metal, and then we're going to go against it as a 30 grit metal. And I'm using the 30 grit metal for a couple of reasons here. And the main reason why I'm doing it is because we know that when we want to expose aggregate, we like to cut nice and deep and use all those 3 layers of the concrete to encourage the tool to cut. And we also like to push the donut. So that's creating a lot of pressure and actually helping us to cut quite flat as we push the donut across the floor. We would do that in, let's say we're going to go north-south for that first pass, going nice and deep. Now, we advocate running the machine, the wheel speed, at a speed that is dictated by what's coming out the back of the machine. So we would be seeing all of the aggregate that we want to see in the finished product in that first pass. So I'm saying that we're not going cross-hatching that floor because we want to see more aggregate. We've already done all that. We've got as much aggregate showing as we want. We advocate a particular floor layout with certain overlap to ensure that we're getting a close to flat finish. And we're also having the machine cutting in a particular direction that it's feathering off to the side that you've already been on and cutting harder on the side that you're working into. So now the floor is flat and we're exposing as much aggregate as we want to see. We're ticking these boxes here. My question is, why are we now going to crosshatch? We know that even once we've done a heavy 30 grit pass, it's still going to be a bit messy. It's going to be a bit hacked up, some ridges and that sort of stuff. Some may say, well, I want to make the floor flatter, so I'm going to cross-cut or cross-hatch this floor now, still with the same grit. As Milan talked about before, going across it is actually not going to make it flatter. As the machine pivots in the middle, it goes up and down like this over those the peaks and into the valley. So the machine doesn't run flat with that technique. The other thing is we've been over the floor. We've used all of the good coarse particles in that second layer to help us cut into the aggregate, the third layer, which is much more dense and harder to cut. And now we're talking about cross-cutting over a section of floor which has got a lot more of the aggregate exposed, so it's much more dense and harder to cut. That is going to close off our diamond tooling, reduce the performance, and make it a smoother texture on the floor. That is not setting ourselves up for a good 50 grit. Okay, the 50 grit is the pass which would come after that. And we're removing a bunch of that texture and the sharpness of that surface texture serrations. So our 50 grit is not going to run as efficiently when we go over the floor. Because if we go a 30 back over a 30, it's probably going to end up being somewhere similar to a 40 to 50 grit texture, but it won't be as sharp. So that means that running that 50 grit on afterwards is actually going to start being a struggle for us. The tool is going to run slower, it's going to lose its performance, and it's going to start operating at like a 70-80, which is going to make it hard for us to remove any types of ridge, any types of erratic scratches. So we're actually going to lose performance in our next pass.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I really don't advocate doing these additional passes in whichever format that you want to do them is simply just because we start to lose our performance on our tool, the one that we're using, and that impacts the one that we're using after that. And hey, you have to look further down the track. If our 50 grit is not performing properly and we're not getting really defined texture, our GRTs are not going to perform properly either. And if our GRTs aren't going to perform properly, what makes us think that this is all going to save itself when we get to resins? Not going to work.
So everything's going to be compounding. And if you say 20% less performance out of every tool, so you can imagine how long the project would need to be extended by.
Not only that, we're losing performance on the tool, and then we're going to go the floor more times. Lose the performance and go over the floor more times. We are just clocking up hours for no good reason.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very good point. I sometimes get a call from guys, to talk about their project, and they're like, oh, it's a really good slab, I could see a little bit of shine at my 50 metals. I'm like, you see shine at 50 metals? If you see shine, that's alarm bells. You shouldn't be seeing any sort of shine. That means there's no texture. The floor is smooth, and you need to get texture back into that floor ASAP. There shouldn't be any reflectivity or any sheen to it at a 50 metal stage. You should see nice scratch pattern that looks like, that's got a nice profile.
I agree.
All right, gents. Well, I'm going to crisscross the kitchen floor for the fridge and get I don't know, is it like a 4X type pattern and crack one of those open.
I'm going to go count my eggs before they hatch.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
See you guys.
A meeting warning. That's the lie.
Well, that's all the credit we have left.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's put more money into this thing.